Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday night's after show from Narrative. It's good to be with you. I'm barely awake, I got to say. I was having a really good nap about an hour ago, until an hour ago. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we have a show to do. So here we are. And I'm really excited that everyone's here. LB,
it was all a dream.
It was all a dream. You know, it's the worst when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, it's a show. You know, you look at your watch and you're like, oh my God, did I miss it? I didn't miss it, but you know, I was close enough. So it's been a little bit of a busy hour for me getting ready. How you doing, Greg? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. I feel good.
Greg Oliar of the Prevail website, and also an author of Dirty Rubles and Lincoln's Booble. I was going to say Lincoln's Bible is here. Because hi, Lincoln's Booble.
I think Jeff needed 20 more minutes of nap.
I'm thinking about my boobs. What's happening?
Nothing. You know, it's on my thing, but it's like, there you are. So.
Oh, they are.
That's the start to the show we always wanted. So, there hi, how are you, Lincoln's LB, you're good.
You know, both myself and my boobs are doing great. Happy to be here.
We have a good show tonight. We have a good show. Don Lewis, I hope will show up in a little bit. He's our fourth panelist tonight. Plus later in the show at around 7:30, we're going to meet the man who's going to try to take down Madison Cawthorn. Do you guys know who that is?
Dr. Strangelove is a young boy.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, there's a huge scandal around Madison right now because he's, they like to present him as a good country boy with all this good, clean living, but he's not really that guy, according to 36 people that BuzzFeed spoke to in his high school. So we might touch on that a little later on. We may not, but at least we'll talk to Josh Remiard, who's the one of the Democratic candidates running for that seat in North Carolina. That'll be really interesting. He'll come around at around 7:30. Plus, we've got lots of the weekend reviews coming up. And you know, the Oscars nominations were out on Monday. You guys were aware of that, obviously. You would be, LB.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm so uninterested this year. I'm sorry to everybody that worked so hard and all those beautiful movies. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I've watched any, but
it's hard. It's hard. Oh, I'm lucky because I get the screeners, and so that was great. And there's some beautiful movies. There really are. I don't know. I'm just not. It's not
been a year for movies
right now. Yeah. It's just not my award season.
And it's going to all be virtual, right? Which is kind of like bizarre, right? So maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll
get into it. That part.
Yeah.
I like how they've been doing the virtual stuff. It feels more intimate. I'm into it. I thought the Grammys were a little odd in that everyone had these tables sort of set apart. So it's sort of like, they were there, but the clapping was sparse. But
I like them in the same room so that when they get jealous, we can see it. You know, I want them sitting right next to each other, so they can the actors can give the great performance as actor who isn't secretly pissed off that they lost. You know?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so happy for Trala. Oh yeah, good job.
Knives out. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I used to, in my old job, I used to be an Entertainment Tonight producer, and I used to spend a lot of time at those award shows. They're a lot of work for these poor actresses and actors who have to go through there. I mean, especially on a hot day. So they must be thrilled to be at home. That red carpet can be a real gauntlet for anyone, because it's just streaming hot in the middle of the afternoon, and people are like in their gowns and their makeup, and then they got their teams, right? Making sure that they look fantastic. It's a good time. It's a good time for everyone, but I'm sure they are quite happy to be at home. One actress who I'm sure is really happy to be at home and is Louise Linton. Do you guys know who Louise Linton is? Very, very celebrated actress of our time. I don't want to
say what I know.
Also, the girlfriend, wife. I'm not sure what she is to Steve Mnuchin, but she's the wife of Steve Mnuchin, and she's got a movie that she has not only acted in but directed in. So, and she is here with the clip. Yeah. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
Never is.
So that's the one scene she was kind to let us take a look at. There's another scene coming up, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. She's very good.
Is that the Oscar clip? Is that?
That's the Oscar clip. She actually, she does come up a little later, because what we do have is the lost category. Every year they read the categories and to do the nominations, and this year they forgot one category. We were able to find that category, and we're going to reveal who the nominations are right here on narrative, and that's also coming up a little later on, because that's the kind of that's how exclusive we are.
Good scoops.
Big scoops. In my mind, at least. But now the news of the week, because really that's what we're here for. I don't know who wants to go first. Anyone got to raise their hands and go first? I
want Greg to talk about his great.
Oh my gosh, that's a good piece. Morning. Yes, really, really good piece.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. I watched the documentary on HBO called Alan v. Farrow, which is about basically the allegations against Woody Allen, who is alleged to have sexually assaulted his 7-year-old adopted daughter, not that it matters. And it's a 4-part thing, and it really goes into depth and interviews everybody, including the police, the prosecutor in Connecticut where it happened. And there's all this stuff that Mia Farrow had recorded calls that she made to Woody Allen, which are played in the film. And it's impossible to watch it and not come away and be like, oh my God, this guy, he's a monster. But looking at it and the assault stuff is almost, it's so horrible that you can't even really wrap your mind around it. But it occurred to me, watching this after having spent the last 4 years talking about Russia and disinformation and ops, that what happened is that Woody Allen ran an op on Mia Farrow. After this thing happened, he, basically ran an op. He about 3 or 4 days after the incident, which was in August of 1992, he filed for custody of the 3 children, which put everything into the public sphere. So now reporters were talking about it. People were asking about it. And Mia Farrow didn't want to say anything because she wanted to keep it out of the press for obvious reasons. And then Woody Allen calls this press conference at the Plaza Hotel in New York City about a week, 10 days after it happens. And in my piece, I basically dissect this press conference. It's maybe 6 paragraphs long, what he does. And he just nails all the things that you want to do if you're running an op, a crisis PR thing. First, he gets out in front of the story. He strikes first. He creates a counter narrative to the narrative that was there. He introduces all kinds of stuff to stop the press from talking about the allegation of him sexually assaulting the 7-year-old. Now we're talking about, is Mia Farrow an unfit mother? Is this a vendetta? What did Mia Farrow program the 17-year-old daughter to say these things? Is she out for money because there's something in there that her lawyers asked for $7 million to make it go away? Like, he goes into so much detail in this very short period of time. And this is the first press conference that was anything to do with this case. It's the first time either one of them had spoken publicly. And it's the first time he had spoken publicly in a long time, because Woody Allen, like all pretentious dicks, is contemptuous of the media that, seems to adore him. So people were there. They were wondering what was going on. They were reporting on it accurately based on what he said. And that was the narrative. He set the narrative from that moment. And it ended with him talking about Suni Previn, who he was now in love with. He says, and he does the thing where he goes, he's always coughing. He has these weird affectations that he does that are supposed to be endearing. This cough and this and that. And then he says, the only thing I'm guilty of is falling in love with, or being in a relationship with, Mia's adult daughter. And, as if that makes it like fine, like, it's a little weird. So
very weird.
After that happened, the press sort of has a field day with all this stuff, because there's so many places to go with the story, starting with him and Sun Yi, which he offered up. And I remember at the time, Soon-Yi graduated from high school the same year I did, 91, and she went to college in the town where I grew up. She went to Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, where I grew up. And so I remember all of this happening, and I don't remember anything about the abuse allegation. I just don't remember that at all. So the op certainly worked on me. And I've never done a detailed analysis, but if you go back and look at the coverage of it, I'm sure a significant percentage of the coverage was about that, or about, this business of, mothers programming their children to, falsely accuse. It's like when that movie Disclosure came out in 1990, whatever, and it was like the one example ever in the history of time that sexual harassment happened to a guy. That's the thing they had to make a movie about, right?
Right.
And it totally skews what that's all about. It's the same kind of effect. So, but what also struck me is that after this happened, he said about destroying Mia Farrow. He had to destroy her and undermine completely her credibility in order for the op to be successful. And I think a lot of people look back on what he did and, we're taking notes. Because if you look at, how indignantly he denies everything, how he points to other victims, how he says he's blameless. There's all these things that all these accusers subsequent to that did. Whether it's Bill Clinton, whether it's O.J. Simpson, whether it's Harvey Weinstein, whether it's Trump, whether it's Brett Kavanaugh, our buddy LB, it's the same damn playbook. And then I was doing research for this, and I'm reading the original reporting in the New York Times, which comes out on August 14th, I think, of 92. And I'm reading, and the lawyer said this, and her lawyer said that. And I'm like, whoa, wait, stop the press. And I go back, her lawyer was Alan Dershowitz, and my head sort of exploded. So I put this in the piece at the end, like Alan Dershowitz would go on to represent most of those people, right? Including Epstein, who, by the way, Woody Allen was good friends with and hung out with all the time. So
what are the chances of that? I mean, that's really bizarre, right? And
they live nearby, and they both like very young women. So, but anyway, subsequent to publishing this, I found out from a source that Mia Farrow did not actually. Alan Dershowitz was not working for Mia Farrow. Technically, he was just in the press talking about it, and his name was just out there. He was introducing himself into this thing as if he was. So
on behalf of Woody,
that's not in the piece. I found that out after, but it makes more sense given what we know of him to just be sort of an opportunistic fame monger, But
it's amazing that you're so good at analyzing ops now that you can actually tell them from a mile away. You're like, oh yeah, that's an op, because that's what we do these days. You have to. But you're so right about that being the template that they kept using after that. So that was the template. And people who go out ahead of the crisis and spin the story their way tend to get off. I was covering the David Letterman scandal. It wasn't even that big a scandal when it turned out, because he went out on TV and instead of letting someone else control the narrative, as it were, he controlled it himself. He said, this is what had happened. This is who I was with. I happened to sleep with all my staff, and so what? I love my women, and something like that, and that was it. And really inappropriate for any. I mean, it really was. It was. That was. It was,
but he also. It was not just his excuse. Yeah. He owned what he did.
Yes.
Woody never owned what he did. Woody set alternate narratives based on disinformation and outright lies, as we now know, based on what we found from the court documents, from the prosecutor and even the judge in the custody in the case, and what that judge had to say about Woody Allen, because he did try to get custody, and the judge was like, these kids do not belong with this guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so and the prosecutor who was going to indict him and why he chose not to, and that's all in the court documents. And that the lies that Woody then told after this, I think it was after the documentary came out or just before it came out, about, suddenly there's a train set. That was never in there. And then you see all the way back from Dylan's very first recorded her interview where she was talking with the law enforcement. She talked about that train set. So he even outright lied about that to make it still seem like this was all contrived, right? Which is what you do when you have incredible confidence in the op that you're running. And so this is what I talked with Greg about, and I talked about it. I'm like, how is sorry. I was like, How? So sorry.
Alan Dershowitz, by the way,
Sorry, it's Dershowitz.
You shouldn't be saying this about him.
Oh my God. Well, but how was Woody so confident? We can't have these two things exist. He can't be this nebbishy little guy who's coughing and is frail and is like humble and like, oh, I make fun of myself and I'm shy and I don't really know how to do anything in the world. And this woman's just out to get me because she's scorned and I don't know what to do. And I'm the victim. And yet then on the other side of it, know what the hell you're doing to run an op like this so that we can really clearly dissect it. There's no even what Greg put down on paper are the facts. That is what's out there. And it's all trackable. So which one are you? You either knew what you were doing and you know how to do this shit, or you're a victim and you're caught in a web and you don't know what's happening to you. Pick a narrative, motherfucker. So that's what I have to say about that.
Can he be both? Can he be both a clumsy actor guy who's got a good team of publicists around him and that know how to do crisis PR? No,
because he entrapped her into recorded conversations.
Right.
He entrapped me. Yeah, that's what when you watch the documentary. He entrapped her into recorded conversations. He spun lies and webs around information that he didn't realize at the time, or no one, or they knew at the time would not come out, and he probably didn't realize, and his team didn't realize at the time when it eventually would come out. That was in those court documents. That was all a minor. It was all sealed. Now we can see it. Right now we know it was in there, and we know that he was directly lying about what was in those documents, in those court documents, and in the testimonies. Okay. Right. So he was straight up lying. He knew he was lying. He knew what he was doing. He knew when he was getting her recorded. He knew what he was doing there and how he's enticing her to that. This guy ran a very sophisticated operation on Mia Farrow. He did and he was very confident. I'm going to win and I'm going to get out of this. And how are you so confident in that, Mr.
Right.
Cough, nebbish, she, humble, I don't know, the world is too big and I'm the victim guy? Why are you so goddamn confident? That's what, for me, was like, you
don't think he could just be acting? That character is an act, and then his real persona is a cutthroat director / actor guy.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yes, he's not a nice guy. You don't get to be where he is in the industry.
He wasn't a nerd in high school. He wasn't some high school film nerd. He was an athlete in high school. He got picked first for sports teams. The nebbishy thing is a fiction. It's acting. It's a character, just like the tramp. It's a character that he plays. One more thing about this of interest, because there's a lot of attention, and with good reason, has been focused on the sex crime, which is horrible and just unspeakably abominable. So I don't want to talk about that because I think there's better people to talk about that. Lots of people have pointed out that in every other movie that he makes, I mean, his body of work, where it's like older guy, younger, barely legal girl that they're coupling off. We know about that. What's less talked about is how often in his movies there's some ex-lover that has to be dealt with, whether she's killed or gotten out of the picture. It's always some crazy, jilted ex-lover. Crimes and Misdemeanors, Angelica Houston. What happens? They have her killed, and he gets away with it. Match Point, okay? The tennis pro. ScarJo gets pregnant with him. He's going to ruin the marriage. What happens? He kills her. He gets away with it. Even Crimes and Bullets Over Broadway. I mean, they shoot the actress who is the mistress, who is annoying. There's this. People are like, oh, he writes such strong women characters. Does he? The women in the movies are fucking disposable, is what they are, and it's ridiculous.
But you seem like a bit of a fan, though. I mean, apart from what he's done in his private life, there, do you like the movies? Are you interested in his work?
I don't like all of them. He's one of the best writers that has ever. I mean, as a writer, he's amazing. He's frustrating from an artistic standpoint because he makes too many damn movies. If he made one movie every 5 years and actually edited the script a little better and spent more time, he would have 20 movies that were amazing instead of five.
Right. By the way, some of his most sort of seminal pieces, I think Annie Hall, there's three of them that someone else wrote. He might have a co-writing credit on that.
Yeah, Martin. What's his name? Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that he got to the Oscars at all. When was it? Last time around? Did he get it?
Midnight in Paris.
Yeah, that's amazing. In 2012, was it that you said he got? Did he win in 2012, or did he just get nominated? For the Midnight
he won for Midnight. He won Best Screenplay for Midnight.
That's amazing when you think about it. When you think about how successful that op was, that within a reasonable amount of time, he was able to reposition himself and win an Oscar. I mean, that's
for a
insane.
movie for a movie with a shit script.
Yeah.
Also, let's just say.
Right. Everybody wanted to work with him too.
Right.
That it didn't stop anyone from wanting to work with Woody, and I think that's the part that's like, at some point, and it's like, okay, do we just this isn't, and then it gets weaponized. Oh, cancel culture. You can't. The guy married his daughter, right? Even if he didn't adopt her, the young girl that he was raising, the Sunye. And I do think that there were the Polaroids, the pictures that Mia found. I'll have to go back and watch the documentary, but I do believe that when she found the pictures of Sunye, the pornographic photographs that Woody took, I think Sunye was underage then too. So I don't quite understand why there was a prosecution there, and he admitted to all of that. So
I don't think I think she was in high school, but I don't think she was underage. I think the age of consent in New York is 17.
Did she go to Dalton School, by the way, guys? Was she?
I don't think so.
School?
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think she did. I can't remember where she went, but I don't think that it was there.
Hey, Don Lewis is here. Hey, Don. Hi.
Oh,
hey, how are
you?
Don?
Good. How are you doing?
What's going on, right?
You're a little late, hey, but it's okay.
Good. I am.
Are you a fan of Woody Allen?
I like some of his movies. His lifestyle is one thing, the movies the other. I like his sense of humor. My Woody Allen story is that my grandfather, who grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, was actually in elementary school with Woody Allen, and he would always tell stories about how he was a major class clown. So you can confirm that he wasn't secondhand confirm that he wasn't a nerdy kind of guy at school, or was he? Well, I don't know that my grandfather ever said that he wasn't nerdy. He said he was always up to no, and he had trouble paying attention, and he would get kicked out of class quite frequently, which I find is the case with many artistic people or people who are just kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't get kicked out of class a lot. Did you, LB?
No.
No, I can't imagine you got kicked out of class. Greg, did you get kicked out of class?
Never. I was a complete nerd. You kidding?
Don, did you get kicked out of class a lot?
If I got kicked out of class, I would have gotten a lot of trouble with my mother. So I'm going to say no.
No. I got kicked out once. That was it. Once. I learned my lesson. Don, you're up next. What's your story of the week? You wanted to talk about Rudy. We can talk about Rudy, or we can talk about anything you want.
Well, I mean, the biggest story for me was not the shootings down in Atlanta, but more the chief, the Cherokee dude. Have you guys covered that yet? The Roy Baker, who was the Cherokee police captain, who was, I guess, initially a spokesperson for the incident. So
I'll go. This is your story, LB. This is the thing you wanted to discuss, right?
But I want to hear what Don has to say.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to.
No, go ahead, Don.
No, it's okay. I want to be careful. There's two sheriffs, and people are getting the two sheriffs collapsed. There was a sheriff that was there at the press conference, and then there was a sheriff that worked for Blackwater, and the sheriff that was there for the press conference also had a website where he was selling really racist stuff. So his spokesperson was his sort of the PR department for him or whatever. But go ahead, Don. So just so that everybody knows, two sheriffs.
It's interesting. What's interesting? That's Roy Baker, the one who had the website with the racist type T-shirts and whatnot that I saw. And it's interesting because I don't know if you all saw, but today the police department itself issued an apology. And statement, I would say. It was not an apology. And the way that it was phrased it was actually, a lot of people are misconstruing it, as happens on social media, that it's the Officer Baker who made the statement, but it's not Officer Baker. He's been removed from doing PR. It was actually a statement from the police department. And my comment was they need a new PR team, because the substance of the comment was, we regret any heartache the statement may have caused, right? So, and that shouldn't be the statement. The statement should be that you regret the content of the statement, right? Or that it was made. It's not that, hey, he said something like extremely out of line, offensive, and we're only sorry if it bothered you, right? So,
this
like,
is the bad day
I don't know,
right? Are you
Yeah, just
speaker on or something? I think I can hear myself echoing through your system there. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay.
who may.
Yeah.
Um,
It seems okay now.
I mean, to frame the issue, I'm getting us pause.
No, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, just to frame the issue too. I mean, what we're talking about, LB started it was, I figure most people are familiar, but maybe some aren't. Was there was the shootings down in Atlanta? A 21-year-old white male shot and killed 8 people. 6 of them were Asian women, and then he fled in a car. And I guess there was a pursuit. And when he was pursued, the quotes were, I mean, when he was detained, the quote said he was detained without incident. Subsequent to that, there is a Cherokee is the town, I guess, in Fulton County. No, sure, that's sorry, it's the DA. Cherokee police chief, a guy named Roy Baker, was speaking about the incident, and he essentially said something like, "Well, this shooter, I think is Roger Aaron Long or something. The day before he had a bad day." So that obviously started a bit of an outlash because there's a gazillion jokes that are being made and can be made. Like, everybody has a bad day, you don't go kill 8 people. But the other one that it really ties into is the current Black Lives Matter movement. And, people say Asian Lives Matter now with this as well. But it's just a general thing. I mean, the big, thrust, in my opinion, behind Black Lives Matter is police brutality and things of that nature, right? So, Tamir Rice is a 12-year-old kid. A police officer gets called to a park about somebody with a toy gun, and Tamir Rice ends up dead. Right, I think it's Rohan. I forget the first name. Rohan Jean. He's in his apartment playing video games. The police officer, the wrong apartment. He ends up dead. This guy shoots and kills 8 people. Please the police. Gets detained without incident. The officers get on TV the next day, or the officer, and says, "Hey, he had a bad day the day before." I mean, it's beyond abhorrent to even engage in that kind of, irrespective of anything, it's bad to have made a statement like that. But when you juxtapose, what's happening with different people, it makes it even more offensive. And, for example, with the rhetoric that comes, from certain people like the former President Trump, Colin Kaepernick takes a knee to protest what, this issue of police brutality and other things, which is a very patriotic to do, exercise your right. And he's called the son of a bitch. And if you post about Colin Kaepernick on Twitter, the bots come out in full force with the hateful, crazy stuff. So on the one hand, you have a guy who takes a knee on a field to protest an issue peacefully, not bothering anybody. And he's protesting about years long and maybe hundreds of years long of actual atrocities and people getting killed. On the other hand, you have a 21-year-old white male who shot and killed 8 people. And the response is, "Hey, you know what? He had a bad day." And the suggestion is don't go so hard on him. And then, the one other, I'm going on to get one other, current day point in that's pretty interesting. Maybe a lot of people don't know about. That's even, better maybe than the Tamir Rice and the other example I gave. Is recently in Rochester, there was a 9-year-old Black girl who was having some issue with the police. To detain her or whatever, they handcuffed the 9-year-old girl. They forced her into the back of the police car, and they pepper sprayed her in the eyes. So that's the way this woman or child is treated. And you have a 21-year-old who killed 8 people, and the response is, "Hey, maybe he had a bad day." Now, just on a lighter side of things, you guys are talking about Woody Allen. There was a movie like this that you all should probably be familiar with, given age classes. I think some of the younger people didn't know. There's a Michael Douglas movie called Falling Down. You remember that?
Say it again.
I remember. I have a comment about that movie when you're.
I'm echoing.
Yeah, there's a Michael Douglas. There's a Michael Douglas movie called Falling Down, and the entire premise of the movie is, I remember it, is he's a guy out in LA who's just living an ordinary life, and he's dealing with traffic, and his wife's having problems with his wife and his kids, and he just basically loses his shit. And I think he either starts shooting around a lot or he goes on a killing spree, but it's the same concept of, hey, society just broke the guy, he snapped, and he kind of went crazy. But
Well,
the larger
the
picture is
the thing that they kept saying about this guy, and is that that he had some sex addiction. They accepted his narrative of I had a sex addiction and I'm going after these massage parlors because they're too tempting for me, which it doesn't strike anyone as being real or true. And they accepted it. Just said, hey, well, that's absolutely what happened, and there's no hate crime here, which is ridiculous. I mean, clearly there's some sort of race issue here.
There's a hate against women. Let's boil this down.
Right.
This is the women had to be taken out because they were tempting him.
Yeah.
That expressed empathy for this man by officer, a sheriff, that he was having a bad day and he had a sex addiction and it was just too much temptation for him. And what can we say? It just was too much. That constant, women are up against this constantly, and I'm so sick of it. I can't even tell you that somehow we are the reason why men can't control themselves. It's insane. So that's the first thing. Then you get into the layer of, well, why not here? And everyone's asking that there are all kinds of adult entertainment things around. If it really was a sex addiction or adult entertainment, well, because he patronized those places is what we think. That's what it's looking like. I actually don't know that I believe this guy.
I think he also came in there and what he said when he was shooting them was, I'm going to kill all the Asians. I mean, I think that's what he said, as far as I know, in the first initial reporting.
Well, maybe he had a fetish,
reporting
right?
out of Korea,
or maybe it was a hate crime.
Yeah.
But Asian American women have faced this forever, right? It's because they're women, and it's just horrible. And then you have the broader AAPI community telling everybody right now, it's really bad for us right now, everyone. It's always been bad. This isn't a new thing, but it's like escalated to this unbelievable level, and they're really being terrorized at our citizens. This is our family members. My God. So for that sheriff to come out and be that, and that's what my whole thing was. Well, let's look at this. Let's look at this sheriff's departments and these police departments. What could this be? What the hell is going on here? Because it does feel like something much bigger. Yes, there's always been a history of this. Yes, there's this sort of that kind of work also attracts a certain element out of our society, especially with white men. Of wanting to dominate, wanting to, it is right. But there's also all these incredible cops and all these incredible sheriffs. There are people that come into law enforcement that are nobly doing that work and want to serve their communities. So I think we can all sort of see, for me, there has been a shift in policing broadly that happened where it was, okay, I'm just going to empty my clip into this person, right? Like this sort of we're just going to, of seeing the citizenry as a whole, right? As sort of war combatants, right? Of we're out there. So, our lives are at risk. And because it's shifted from, we're just going to be, the instances of being just horrible racial oppression and over policing and all of that, where we always have had that elements, to the police and the sheriffs really coming from a framework of, our lives are at stake. Oh my God, I'm fear. Release my gun. And that's actually something new. That's actually different. It's a layer on top of what already existed that has exacerbated everything. And then you have, with that, police forces, sheriff departments, ICE, right? All of our law enforcement having a real problem with domestic terrorism and white supremacy. Just a real issue with it. Look at January 6th. Look at the police. Look at what's happening. There's something else going on. And so that's what I did.
You said the guy was a Blackwater, or former Blackwater guy?
One of the sheriffs, too, that was commenting on this was a Blackwater guy. Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really uneasy to find out. I mean, I know there's a lot of good Blackwater people out there, but go ahead, John.
To LB's point about the department kind of wide problem is, even with the statement that was made today, not only was the statement from the department that they regret if people had heartache, but then they went on to say how this officer, Roy Baker, I believe, has done great work for the Asian community and he cares about all people. But meanwhile, people in the know, like LB mentioned earlier, he was selling T-shirts on Facebook, apparently, that had COVID-19 on them, calling it the China flu, right? So rather than completely
Spelled
distancing
out like
themselves, the
Donald
media
does it.
from this time,
Oh, see
right?
there.
Like the police department is supporting him and making it seem like he didn't do something egregious, where he should be not only pulled off the case, but should be reprimanded sharply, and there shouldn't be a like a fake apology of regret, any heartache, and then also try to prop the guy up and say he's about equal rights and whatnot when he's selling China virus shirts online. And I think part of I'm not as in tune with whether or not the atrocities against Asians have been increased recently or not. People say they have, but one wanted to look for an impetus behind that or a reason. You really don't have to look much further than former President Trump going around talking about the China virus and China this and China that. It doesn't help. I mean, he has basically, I almost qualify them as an army of like Manchurian candidate type people here, right? With the QAnon and whoever else, the Capitol rioters. Like Trump says, jump, they say how high. Trump says bark, they bark. They do whatever he says, and he sows the seeds of this hate. Because it's in the way I see it, it's ultimately in its financial interest to do so, right? He's already raised like $31 million for whatever nonsense he's talking about doing in the future. But if you look behind all of it, you have a malignant narcissist who cares about nobody else but himself, probably not even his own family at the end of the day. He doesn't care who gets hurt. He doesn't care who gets killed. He doesn't care who gets trampled on, as long as he gets his money and does what he wants to do. And he's tapped into like a perfect like main line of just some people who, to take, another quote, Lyndon Johnson had a quote from, whenever Lyndon Johnson was around, which I think speaks perfectly to how Trump is able to control these people and what's going on, right? And the quote is something along the lines of, if you can like teach the white, like it's like either the poorest or the white man or something, that even the lowest of the low white men, that any colored person is beneath them. You can pick their pockets all day long and you won't know that they're doing it. And that's, I don't know, I probably bastardized the quote a little bit. Yeah. Look it up cleanly, but the theme of it is exactly right? Yeah.
I think
what they're doing is
also
the
trying to
other is
pursue.
bad, brown is bad. Go ahead.
Sorry. Keep going.
The other's bad, brown is bad. Ply on hate. So you take people who are disaffected, disenfranchised, whose lives are not as good as they'd like them to be, and rather than trying to have them pull themselves up through some personal accountability, self-awareness, you say, you know what? Your life is bad because the black people, because the brown people, because the Asians, because the women, because the foreigners. But you know what? If they weren't there, your life would still suck. And there's actually an really interesting article, and I forget where, Dahlia Lithwick, who used to write on the Slate about the Supreme Court, but I think she stopped after the Kavanaugh stuff. I read an article because she was just so appalled. But she's a brilliant writer and fun to follow. She posted some other article that was talking about the big con, and they were basically saying all the way since the days of slavery, there's been a con on poor, disaffected, white people, and part of that was slavery. And like one of the big themes of the article was that by having slavery, you kept the minimum wage that will be needed down for the poor whites, right? Because you have free labor, so you don't have to pay people as much for other labor. Yeah. It's a pretty interesting article that went through all that. But go ahead.
No, I'm going to interrupt you because we've got one more person who's waiting in the wings, and I'm going to take a little break here. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to take a little 1 minute break to make sure all the audio and video is set up, and then we'll come right back so you get to enjoy that fancy opening that we did a few weeks ago, and then we'll be right back with Josh Remiard, and we'll explain what Josh is doing here in just a second. So stand by, we'll be right back on Narrative. And welcome back. And Josh will be back. Sorry, Don will be back in just a second. The person you're seeing on the bottom right of his screen there is Josh Remiard, who is the candidate who's running to take down Madison Cawthorn, who is the freshman congressman from North Carolina. Hi, Josh. How are you doing? Oh, hang on. I've got you down here.
no.
There you are. There you are. Go ahead. You're back up. Hi there. How are you doing?
Doing good.
You're like the anti Madison Cawthorn in so many ways, because Madison is you're a family man. You've got a good family there, and you're running on a ticket that's really about returning to sort of the core values of the Democratic Party. So tell us a little bit about your candidacy, and then we'll go into the backstory of Madison as well.
Yeah. So I ran last year for the North Carolina state seat out here in Henderson County, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but after that I did some deep soul searching, and I wanted to continue serving the community. That's just, I guess it's just the way I am from the military. I see a mission, I want to accomplish it. And then January 6th happened, and then you had my opponent, Madison Cawthorn, up there on the world stage, telling people to go ahead and storm the Capitol, telling people to go ahead and threaten their local state reps to change the vote. And I remember, just sitting there seeing this, and then my wife came home, and I remember just yelling, and she's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "This is unbelievable. This is for the past 200 years, we've had service members who have raised their hand and oath to this country to defend their families, this country, again, in the Constitution. And here he is just spitting on every single sacrifice that everyone has given to this country." I lost battle buddies when I was in Iraq. I lost some really good friends of mine back here due to PTSD, and it's like, I'm not gonna stand around while you take everything that every other person in this country, throughout the history of this country, and toiled over. Watch you just tear it down in one day. No. And that's not what Western North Carolina deserves either. Mm-hmm. So I decided to get back in and take him on and try to bring a little bit of honor, dignity back to Western North Carolina.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's true from the coast. Looking in, it sometimes looks like the entire country in the middle is so much baked in the Madison Cawthorn kind of perception of the world that whatever the Republican Party says is right, and whatever Donald Trump says is right, and we have to just follow him. I gather you think it's very different.
Yeah, look, especially out here, like you said, like there's this perception that everyone sort of thinks along those lines. But I'd say it's the opposite. There are so many people across the political spectrum out here who, they just want to go about their day. They want to pursue the American dream. They want to go to work. They want to come home. They want to spend time with their family. Mm-hmm. I've spoken to some far right conservative people, and they're concerned about healthcare, just like someone on the left is. They're concerned about healthcare, that it's expensive, or that they can't get it, or that, especially out here, we've had hospitals closed down left and right just because it's too expensive to keep them going. These are things that people are concerned with, and the people. It's not that way. The people out here, they're not all crazy fringe lunatic Trumpers. They're regular, average, everyday people who just want to go about living their lives.
We hear one of your.
You have a baby.
You have a baby there.
What? How many kids do you have?
I have two girls. So one of you is 3 years old, and Aowen is about to turn 2.
Okay.
That's
You
awesome.
got
Good
your
names.
hands
Good
full.
names.
I'll keep going.
Oh, that's good. No, I'm just, can you tell us a little bit about, I love that that's how you're communicating for your community, and that you're connected to your community. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal story, and not just that you wanted to serve, but what maybe drew you into the military, and what it's been like for you and your home and your family and all that. We just like to know a little bit more about you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So at the age of 4, I was adopted by my grandparents. Before that, I was sort of bouncing around from foster home to foster home. And so there was this thing that they always taught me, and it's I think it's through them adopting me that this really shined through. When there's something worth fighting for, you put everything you can into that basket, all the eggs you can in that basket, and you fight for it. So my grandfather was in the Foreign Service. We traveled around the world, and then when he retired, he moved. When he retired, we moved back to North Carolina, and we decided to plant some roots in Wilmington. So I went to high school there, and
Nice.
it was around 2006 that I saw a lot of what was going on in Iraq, and I started seeing that. I was paying a little bit more attention to the death toll. I was seeing a lot of service members over there fighting, sweating, toiling, and I was like, I started thinking to myself, what am I doing? Like I'm working, this really minimum wage job. I'm not doing anything with my life. What am I doing? And while these people are over there, fighting for our freedoms to protect, again, like I said, their families, our Constitution, this country, the ability to live the American dream, what am I doing? So, I drove to my recruiter that day, and I went in and I said, look, I don't want you to sell me on anything. I want to be in the infantry, and I want you to put me in the fastest deploying unit that you can, because that's where I need to be. I need to be up there with the fight. So I did. I enlisted for 5 years.
Tours? 5 years.
I did.
How many tours did you?
So I did 5 years, and then I re-enlisted, so a total of 8 years.
Wow.
But I did 2 tours in Iraq. The first in Baghdad during the surge, and then the last tour I did. We went up to Mosul, and we were sort of like the backstop for a lot of the units that were exiting Iraq. So we have a lot of memories, a lot of stuff to think back on.
Sorry, go ahead, Greg. Do you have any questions?
Well, yes, you. First of all, thank you for doing that, and I got
That's
chills
right.
hearing that, because
Thank you.
I wouldn't have the guts to do that, and I've read a lot about the war. That's as far as I would go. So seriously, good on you. I salute you. But your opponent also has a pretty strong military background. I mean, he's a guy that he went to the Naval Academy, and he was in battle with a tree, I saw online, and he went and and he got Hitler in the bunker. No, he just visited the place where Hitler hung out. That's all.
Yeah.
What do you think because I think the stolen valor thing is pretty awful with them. Of the many things, he's like the bad guy from an 80s movie. He's like Stalin from Better Off Dead, this guy, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think when you see him? How are you going to debate him without being completely enraged? Is my question.
Well, that's and this is a good point. That's the thing about Madison Cawthorn. I'll answer the first part. Seeing the stolen valor, that harkens back to what I was just saying earlier. This is, again, there are so many people that fought overseas, that raised their hand, didn't come home, and they were willing to make that sacrifice because they believed in their core. Just like I believe in my core that America's worth fighting for. Our communities are deserve to be defended, against threats, foreign and domestic. And so we believe that. And then you got this guy over here who saw his shot at 15 minutes of fame, and took it. And so that to me that angered me beyond anything, because again, I lost a friend to PTSD.
Was it not out? Yeah, was it not out? I just got to ask you, for your area, for your community, did people believe that he was in, or was it out that he was lying about this then? I don't know when that lie got punctured, or were that people just assuming it and he just rode the wave of that because he is disabled? How does that happen? How does somebody who lies about service end up a congressperson? I find that shocking.
I guess. Well, so there was a little bit of research done on him after he made all these accounts of himself, and it was pretty far into the campaign at that point when it was found out that it was backwards. He had applied for the Naval Academy, but then was rejected, and then he crashed into the tree. and then he tried to blame his friend, and then he tried to sue him, and just a whole just a whole slippery slope of just bad stuff that, in my mind, is it it's it lends no respect to this community whatsoever.
It's even worse than that. I mean, because what BuzzFeed reported in the recent weeks, and it was this incredible expose where they spoke to like 36 people who went to high school with him, and they found that they including 24, by the way, there were former students and their friends and relatives, I should say here, of course, and they had lots of complaints around him being a predator, really, to the younger girls in the very Christian school that he went to, a private school, I think. Was it private school, but still a very Christian school? And their allegations include calling them derogatory names in public in front of their peers, including calling one woman slutty, asking them inappropriate questions about their sex lives, grabbing their thighs, forcing them to sit on his lap, and kissing and touching them without consent. One of those women now works as an intern for another Republican member of Congress, and she passes Cawthorn in the corridors of the Capitol. And then there's one of the things that he used to do is often in his car, he would entrap these women in his car and harass them. He used to take them on these fast drives, which he used to call fun drives. And then he used to harass them on there by locking them in the car and asking them all these really inappropriate questions and making it difficult for them to get away because they had nowhere to get away to. And this guy is he's just the worst kind of person you'd imagine would ever run for Congress or be a congressman in America. And yet here he is, lying his way to the seat. That must be a very difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah. Again, I've got two young daughters, and I want nothing but I want nothing but the world for my girls, and I want them to be able to pursue their dreams when they get older and not have to worry when they go to school or when they're at work or just out and about that they have to feel uncomfortable about themselves, because that's the kind of person that my opponent portrays himself as, and it seems to be proud of, and anyone that wants to call him out, he wants to try to build up some sort of argument around us, calling us, Pelosi drones or what have you. And it's like, no, man, like I refuse to allow you to kind of breed that kind of ignorance, that negativity for my daughters when they grow up. And so, yeah, you're right. That's not in my, I don't respect him as my representative.
And earlier on, we were speaking about how these ops are being run to sort of protect people's reputation. Kevin McCarthy, just a few days before this article came out in BuzzFeed, put out this video of Madison, talking about how he's a family man, a country guy, likes to cook dinner for his wife, this very wholesome image, which is intended to sort of prepare everyone ahead of time to disarm some of these allegations or some of the allegations that came out in BuzzFeed. So there is a campaign trying to support him from the very highest levels of the Republican Party. Do you have the same kind of support coming from the Democrats?
For against him? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say, he is the epitome of what happens when people don't take their responsibility seriously. You see it as you see it as your block of 15 minutes of fame, and you just keep riding it. You go up on Fox and Friends, and you talk about Dr. Seuss, or on Twitter you challenge people to arm wrestling matches. Whatever the case is, it's not doing anything for any of us out here in Western North Carolina that need healthcare, that would like to see our economy boosted, that would like to see our education improved. It's doing absolutely nothing of that for us out here. And
that's such a good point. And I think if you lean into that, I really think that's a great a distinguisher for you with this guy, with your community, in that, is it really just now that running for office is about Instagram fame and so this sort of weird celebrity niche on some, on cable news, or is it about doing the work and helping the people in the community and seeing what you can get done policy wise? I just feel like this guy is the epitome of just an Instagrammer. You know what I mean? It's everything's fake. Everything's a fake narrative. You get Kevin McCarthy coming in with the fake stuff. He he goes for the Hitler thing, and it, that'll be sensational. But I like the guy, but I don't like the guy. But look, you can't deny that he's a. It's like, what are you doing? What does that have to do with people who are struggling to get to a hospital with their kids, right? Or get some education going, or have food for on their table, or have, it's like, what is this? I think I think people are sick of that. I don't think, regardless of party, I think everyone's just sick of it. Stop going into politics just to be a social media personality. It's insane.
Yes.
So I encourage that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
I encourage that narrative for you.
yeah. I mean, when I got out of the Army, I used the post 9/11 GI Bill. I got my degree in political science and philosophy, and from the University of Washington, and then I wanted to continue serving, so I got involved with this organization, this amazing organization, Team Rubicon, and they train veterans up on natural disaster relief. They trained me up on wildland firefighting, as well as damage assessment. And so after Hurricane Michael hit, they deployed me down to Hurricane Michael, and I helped out in Florida with some of that natural disaster relief.
You're a saint.
So
we need to get you in Congress right away. We need you guys.
So,
guys like you, at least. That's amazing.
I guess I always take it back to what something my drill sergeant said. He's like, you don't do this job or any other job for fame or fortune. You do this job because that's the job that you have to do, point blank, period. So, it's always weird for me to be like in the spotlight, talking about it. I just prefer rolling up my sleeves, getting down on the ground and getting the job done. Cause that's bottom line where it needs to be, where a representative needs to be.
Absolutely. Don, do you have any questions?
I was going to say thanks, like Greg, thanks very much for your service. It's great to meet you, hear your story. On a lighter note, I think I have the exactly same pattern shirt that you're wearing. So I have
God, so do I. Right over there.
I've worn it many times now. I keep looking at it. I'm like, is that the same shirt? And it is the same shirt. And, really, as the conversation is going, and I'll be just touching it, the one thing I think, hearing you speak, like you're an absolutely genuine person. You're a real person. You can hear your kids in the background. You can see it through your smile, the energy you're giving off, the stories you're telling. Like I kind of read people quickly. It's double-edged sword and whatnot. Maybe I'm good at it, maybe not. I think I'm pretty good. But you're on. You can tell you're just a really good person, and your adversary is not. So I just think one of the I don't know if it was Zev or LBS. Was the Democratic Party helping you? I think a huge thing that would be helping you to be able to get that message out. It's messaging, and even if people don't like that people are running on Instagram and running on Twitter, it's a reality of today's society, right? Like, go back to my friends from Rittenhouse, Lynn Wood had, I think, 50,000 Twitter followers. And then he got involved with the Rittenhouse thing, and he started pushing the Q narrative, and his followers went to like 650,000 before he even announced he was doing the Trump election fraud. Then he got to 1.2 million. Now, I know there's some of you folks that have pretty big followings, but that's where they're getting a lot of their support, right? You go in the rooms, whatnot. So, whether or not that's the best way to do it, I mean, you have a great message, you have a great story. And I think it's as important to get out your good story as it is to get out, the lies and the fakeness on the other side. So that's one thing. And then, one of the just straight question I had, and you touched on this very earlier, but it really interests me. Somebody like you, who's been on 8 tours, who's, you there in Iraq during the surge, and you touched on this in your very first comments about January 6th and the attack on the Capitol, and like really like an effort to just overthrow democracy. And, I've never served, and so I completely respect what you do. But, the way I see it is like if I had gone out to another country, or my children had, I don't have children, but if I did, and put their lives on the line for what you're being told is America and democracy and all the things that you're sold on to do that, and all the things that you think you're defending and you are defending. And then to see a day like January 6th and the reaction of some of the people on the other side, like, well, what is that? Like, what are the emotions that go through you when you watch the videos, when you hear the rhetoric, after, you went and risked your life, for your country, and they're kind of trying to overthrow exactly what it's all about?
Yeah. It was very visceral. It was very, I guess, just deep into my core, like just anger. when my wife came home from work that day, I was watching everything that happened, and I just started yelling, and she was like, and I was like, look, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just yelling because you're here, and I can't believe this. That's exactly it. Every single one of us, you go through, if you're an infantryman, you go through like 6 months of training, and you learn that your job as an infantryman is to be on the front lines. You charge that machine gun nest. That's your job, and you're doing it. And there's no way to get someone to do that if it's not tied to something bigger than themselves, and that's defending our country. I mean, people continually look at, good, bad, or indifferent. They look at America because we are the land of opportunity. We have freedoms over here, So to see someone go up on the world stage and tell people there's a lot of fight in them, go ahead and threaten your local state reps if they don't change this thing. Go up there and storm this place. Just do all the stuff. I don't even know. There's just not. I don't feel like there's necessarily a word for that. Like it's so internally angry. It makes me so internally angry. Like I can't believe it. And I felt like at that moment this is the only way that I could continue serving my community, is by making sure that he's no longer in that office, and that someone who actually gives a damn, excuse me, can
you can say damn here.
Okay.
We've said much worse. Trust me.
Have you not heard my mouth?
Damn is okay.
Oh my God.
But someone who cares about their community, and it doesn't matter to me if someone's a Republican, if they're a conservative, if they're a Democrat, if they're a liberal. It doesn't matter. You live in my district. You deserve someone who cares about this community, going to DC, keeping their head down, rolling their sleeves up, and getting the job done. Making sure that we, again, have adequate health care, have a strong and robust economy, and can make sure that our kids have a good education. That's it.
Really inspiring words, Josh. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. You should tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter, because this show is primarily watched on Twitter. Handle? What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is Josh for Congress.
No, is it Josh for Congress?
At Josh for Congress with a 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a blue check, or you're not blue check? It's hard to get that.
You're not giving him out.
He doesn't know. Let's allow that.
Let's help you. We're going to help you with your. We're going to help you with your following, but get your follower count up. We'll help you boost that a little bit. But it's not about you being an Instagram or a Twitter star. It's about your message getting out there and people knowing that you're actually going to go work for them, not just try to be famous. How about that?
Yeah. I love how authentic you are, and what a great story you have. So thank you so much for joining us on Narrative. We'll have you back, I'm sure, especially when you win against Madison, but before then as well. Thanks very much for joining us. Have a good day.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Those babies.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. What a nice guy. What a nice guy.
Refreshing. That
so
was
nice.
He's going to be like secretary. He's going to be Secretary of Defense in like 20 years.
Please. Right? That would be amazing. Yeah. I'm someone who's actually been on the front lines like that. Oh, it's so nice to hear that. It's so nice to be inspired by someone who's who feels what America's all about again. It's just we haven't had that in so long, and it's certainly not during the Trump years. And the Republicans are sort of missing in action on this front, and this is really their front. So it's nice to see the Democrats embracing the patriotism, because that's not that usual. But it seems to be a good place to go. Wow, what an inspiring guy. So what's the time? We're almost out of time. So we are out of time. I didn't do my thing about the lost Oscars. I'm going to do it quickly. All right, you're up for it?
Okay.
Yeah, you can't tease us and not reveal this.
Right. So it's the performance. It's the best political performances. The category was lost, but now it is found. And here we go. We have the graphics changed a little bit there, but it's Marge, Get Your Gun. About the story of Marjorie Taylor Greene and her guns. There's also the story on the other side of the Republican Party of Ocean's 11. This is the crew from the Republican Party who voted to, I think, ban Marjorie from their caucus or whatever it is. They decided, the 11 Republicans who crossed an ocean to vote against her. And then there's Major in The Call of the Wild. Major is Joe Biden's dog, and there he is. I think he's back home now after a week away, learning how to be a better dog after biting a Secret Service guy.
Aw.
Earlier on, we saw the actress, and now here she is in her big movie with Steve Mnuchin. It's called Goldfinger, and that's when they visited Fort Knox. What was her name again? Linton. Louise Linton or something like that.
Yeah.
We'll show you another scene from her movie on the way out here. And then Hidden Figures with Kamala Harris and Stacey Abrams and Deb Harland over there. So I think it was a good one. And finally, the Justice League, which everyone's going to be watching this weekend. I didn't get to finish this one, but there you've got Nancy and Swalwell and
Wow.
and Hakeem. Hakeem. I lost my brain. Sorry,
Yeah.
Hakeem. So there you go. There are the winners of the Lost category, or the nominees for the Lost category of Best Political Performance this year. There you go. I did it. So we got it
You
in.
get it.
So we got it in. So what, are you guys going to watch Justice League? I hear it's a big success.
I
It's
saw
gonna be
the
huge this
first two
weekend.
parts, and I really liked it. I was very surprised. My wife liked it, which is even more surprising.
You saw
It's
two parts of
visually,
it.
it's
How many parts is it?
Well, it's 4 hours, and they
Oh.
divide it into chapters. So
Oh,
we watched
it's a
the first
4-hour
2
movie.
chapters, and I'm sure as a superhero movie, it's probably bad, and it's very like they have the guy that sort of looks like Thanos, and instead of like the Infinity Stones, there's like the boxes that they have to get. So it's a little bit, like that. But visually, it's really it's like watching dance. It's kind of stunning to watch.
Are you going to watch
Maybe
it?
just turn
LB?
the sound. No, and the music is really
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. I heard really good things about it. Everyone's so excited online about
Yeah.
it. So I'm definitely
I
gonna
watch them all.
Why
I
not?
just
Why
have to
not
get
watch
to
it?
it, but I watch it all.
Yeah.
I love it all. I watch it all. It's all good.
How about you, Don? Are you
Yeah.
planning to see it? You there,
I
Don?
have a delay. Did you ask me a question?
Oh, yeah, I was asking if you're going to see Justice League.
Oh no, I did not see it. If it's 4 hours, I won't be seeing it.
There you go. You watch it over 3 nights. That's the thing to do.
Internet has fried my brain. I can't concentrate for 4 hours unless I have to.
No worries. And we'll tell you about it in a précis next week. So that's the show for this week. We'll be back on Tuesday, hopefully, with something exciting and interesting. I have nothing planned yet, but I'm sure something will show up. And otherwise, thanks for watching Narrative on this Friday night. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Good night.
Bye all.
Narrative is funded by viewers like you. Support our independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative.